Now, if we can discuss calmly and rationally why we won't have a lockout next year. This has been the talk well, a lot of fans talk about this, and it's kind of an under the surface kind of thing, kind of like, so lockout? And then you kind of debate about it, and then you kind of push it to the side. The NHL, they're not causing a lockout next fall. That's huge. And I mentioned in the news of the day kind of thing, and we're kind of playing with it, but I wanted to go into why I think we're not going to have any kind of lockout this coming season. And the reason's simple. Why would players trigger a lockout? So if you're a National Hockey League player right now, what reason do you have to trigger a lockout? Escrow? Do players really want to stand there in front of a camera next September all wearing their suits and all dapper and say, oh, we're not going to have hockey games in October because we're upset that our boss is withholding too much of our paycheck? And risk fans saying, and how much of my paycheck, or how many of my paychecks would I need to add together to equal one of your paychecks? So you've got to watch this. This PR battle is something that the NHL players have lost before. And they don't want to risk losing it again because the NHL right now can go, hey, we didn't cause this. The players caused this. Right? So this is where it gets kind of tricky. And then the Olympics are the other issue that I think a lot of hockey players want to talk about. But think about this. How many NHL players actually play in the Olympics? What's the actual percentage? What? 10% of the NHL players? 15? 20? So there's a grand majority of NHL players that don't. So for them, it might be nice to have a bit of a break. But in general, the Olympics is not something they're willing to lose games over. And hockey players in general, I don't think they're going to be willing to do that. Now, reasons to sign a new agreement are as follows. The U.S. TV deal's on the horizon. If they go on strike, that deal falls in value. Absolutely falls in value. And it hurts their presence in the States at a time when it feels like hockey is starting to pick things up. So while in Canada we're talking about falling ratings and Sportsnet and Rogers bleeding money on the NHL deal they have, the U.S. may very well be the opposite story pretty darn soon. And then there's expansion, of course. We've got expansion into Seattle. Seattle comes in 2021. Do you really, a year before Seattle comes in, want to sit out and ruin a season over something minor? And not only that, but expansion means another 23 players in the NHL. That's expanding your union. So they may not get the expansion fee, but they get extra players in the union. It means more jobs. So the NHL's creating jobs, and that means more paychecks for more players. And then there's rising salaries. Now, I've seen some comments on some of these contracts guys are signing where it's $10 million a year, $11 million, whatever it is, a year. And people are saying this isn't fair. Minimum salaries in the NHL are $700,000, and that's not fair because that guy's making $7 million, this guy's making $700K. Okay. The problem is this. It's still a $700K minimum. I remember when it was $450. So the minimums are still going up. No, they're not going up as fast as the maximums, but they're still going up. And if a player's going to make $700,000 a year and say, I can't make ends meet, again, you're risking alienating fans if this is the hill you're going to die on. Because here's the big thing. Fans. Fans are not happy with the NHL. And there are numerous reasons fans get upset with the NHL. RFA demands right now have fans upset with those restricted free agents. He's just coming out of an entry-level contract. He's not worth $11 million a year. That guy's not worth $10 million a year. And then when a team gives it to them, the first thing you hear is, this is why we're going to have another lockout. This is why we're going to have another lockout. Here's the problem with that theory. That's how it's supposed to work. The players get their money. The teams make their money. The NHL is still profitable. Those contracts fall within the salary cap constraints. The NHL doesn't care if Patrick Laine gets $10.5, $12 million a year. They don't care. As long as salary cap is still in place. And for the players, they don't care that Laine gets however much he gets. They don't care if he gets $4 million. It doesn't affect them. So one contract in a vacuum doesn't mean here comes another lockout. because the salary cap keeps going up, and it's not going up as much as it was, but it's still going up, and because we have the new TV contract coming in the States the next couple of years, I really don't think there's an appetite for any kind of a stoppage. Because right now, while you could, if you're an owner in Arizona or an owner in Florida, you might look and go, we're not making money, and we have to pay guys how much? This doesn't work. You're still going to get shouted down by the Boston, Chicago, Toronto, New York Rangers, basically your original six, and other teams that are able to make a lot of money, like St. Louis, Pittsburgh, as long as they make it into the playoffs. And Pittsburgh's ability to make money is shaky sometimes. But in general, stable teams are happy with the way things are right now. You're going to have some owners that say this system doesn't work for me, but as a whole, it works for the NHL. So those huge contracts and RFA demands are not going to trigger a lockout. And fans, they're discontent with Bettman. Anytime Gary Bettman's on the screen smiling, they expect either they'll find out that somebody stole the money out of their purse, or whatever. They expect something horrible to happen because Bettman's on the TV. And I get it. He has been the presiding manager over numerous lockouts, but he's got the owners what they want. So when I see people complaining about how much money Bettman makes, hey, the NHL's gone from making $1 billion to making over $5 billion under his watch. The NHL makes more money now than it ever has. That's why he gets paid big money. That's why the owners keep him around. So the idea that just because Gary Bettman's involved means we're going to have a lockout, I understand that feeling. But I think right now he's got the 50-50 split. The NHL's making a lot of money. Expansion is going through really well. Expansion's made them over $1 billion between Seattle and Vegas. And there's still the potential for more. I still think the NHL is going to at least explore the idea of going beyond 32. And there's no reason not to. The only reason not to is because fans don't want it. Well, okay, but if we can put a team in Houston, make $650 million, and add another 23 jobs, the players are going to be happy with those 23 more jobs. And I just mean that because it's a 23-man roster, right? You're actually adding more jobs than that when you consider injuries and everything else. And so you can't hold past lockouts against Bettman other than just because they're past lockouts. Where the NHL is right now, they're happy. That's why they're not reopening the agreement. And sure, there may be people in the union who can't stand Bettman, but they're making more money. So the NHL players keep making more money. And of course, fans don't like the LTIR and the cap circumvention that seems to exist because of the long-term injured reserve. And I don't think some of the owners like it either. I don't think the NHL likes the way this is being done. But I think the NHL looked at this before the September 1st deadline and said, do we really want to risk losing games next fall because of this? No. So I think this was something they looked at, and I think in 2022, when the agreement expires, they may very well say, okay, we've got to fix this. But for right now, it's not worth it. It's not worth taking the early out on the collective bargaining agreement to push this fight forward 2 years for this. I remember when baseball had lockouts and strikes all the time. It was constant. And while I keep seeing posts about, hey, baseball figured it out, why can't hockey figure it out? Baseball, there's talks about a stoppage after the next agreement's done. There are players that are not happy, and there are owners that are not happy. There is talk of a stoppage in baseball. That's just the nature of the beast when you're dealing with unions and bosses, and you got billionaires and millionaires. And that's kind of where we're at with the NHL. The difference is the NHL people are pretty happy with the way this works. The salary cap's working like it's supposed to. And for players, they have rising salaries. And again, are NHL players really going to stand there next September? Again, wearing their suits. And I assume in the background you'll have Sidney Crosby and Patrick Kane and probably Connor McDavid all looking dapper and saying, hey, these guys behind me right here, Donald Fear up there talking, these guys behind me right here, they might make a combined about $40 million a year. But you know what? They don't think that's enough. And even though that's not what they'd be saying, that's what we as fans would be hearing. It is a PR nightmare to go on strike. It is a PR nightmare for hockey players to do it. I can't see them doing it. I actually think we're going to have labor peace. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.